So you have resources.
May 15th, 2024 work session of the North Allegheny School Board. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Starting with our calendar review, we have a world language curriculum presentation this evening. And next week on May 22nd, we have our regular meeting. And at that meeting, we will also recognize our 25-year employees and our NA Foundation scholarship recipients and our diversity contest winners. And we will likely have an executive session that evening following the meeting. Moving on to our agenda, we will start with our world language curriculum review. Dr. Highland.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. I'd like to thank the team for putting together a presentation tonight. And my understanding is that Ms. Good is going to kick off the presentation. So I'm going to invite Ms. Marcy Good up to the podium.
Good evening, and thank you so much for allowing the World Language Department to share with you tonight our accomplishments and vision for our future. My name is Marcy Good, and I'm the World Language Department Chair. Presenting with you tonight is Mr. Bill Mascari, a Spanish teacher at Marshall Middle School.
Hola.
Hola. Our team has spent the last year analyzing our program, as well as researching best practices and other school district programs. The curriculum review team was made up of members from various languages and levels representing middle and high school. The team focused primarily on levels 1 through 5, as last year the exploratory team had a fast-track review to revise our exploratory program to best fit the needs of our students. Let's start with some successes. After the department's last full curriculum review, a recommendation was made to partner with local universities in order to offer college and high school credits to students while still enrolled in high school. The idea was to incentivize students to continue their language studies through levels 4 and 5. CHS credits are available in our Honors 4, Honors 5, and AP courses in all 4 of our languages. This program not only increased enrollment in our upper level languages, but students have experienced great success with transferring credits to colleges, even allowing them to graduate early. The program was also eventually expanded to offer 50 CHS courses in our district across most departments. This is a huge benefit for our students. As I previously stated, the middle school teachers participated in a review of our exploratory program last year. Before last year, our students were only able to see 2 of our 4 languages before choosing a formal language to study. This did not fit with what was best for students. So our teachers redesigned the program. So now our students see all 4 of our languages before choosing which language they want to pursue formally in 8th grade. This affords them the opportunity to better select the language that most interests them. And we're excited to see how this affects our enrollment numbers in the future and benefits our students. In our student survey this year, most students expressed excitement and gratitude in the opportunity to explore all of our languages. To understand some of our recommendations, let me give you a little snapshot of what our sequence of languages are at North Allegheny. First of all, again, they start in 7th grade with exploratory. Our first semester exploratory students are able to see all 4 of our languages before they choose which language they're going to study. Second semester students, because of the scheduling timeline, they only get to see 2 formal presentations of our languages, but the teachers have designed mini lessons and mini courses so that they're able to get at least a taste of all of our languages before they schedule for their 8th grade year. Our level 1 is offered in our middle school to our 8th grade students. And then level 2 is the first time students have the opportunity to choose either honors or academic courses. The honors sequence terminates with advanced placement, AP, and the academic sequence terminates with honors 5, which is a CHS credit course. So every language student has the opportunity to earn college credits if they complete their sequence. The department's also experienced some exciting news in winning several prestigious awards in language programs. The PEP Award was awarded in 2020 for exemplary language programs by the Pennsylvania State Modern Language Association. Both our German and our French programs have also earned distinction awards from their professional organizations. And as always, our Latin program continues to dominate at the Junior Classical League convention, being overall winners for over 20 years. Finally, we were able to offer honor societies in all 4 of our languages. This gives students an opportunity to earn honors scores and to have that distinction of earning this distinction of honors. We also have offered the PA State Seal of Biliteracy, and this is not just in our 4 languages, but this is in any language that a student is proficient in. As you can see, we've been quite busy and we're really proud.
So along with these the successes that we've had in the last few years, during our SWOT analysis, we did talk about and uncover some challenges that our department is currently facing. One of the greatest challenges that we have encountered is limited pathways to begin formal language study. Many students are not able to start each of our 4 languages offered at NAI. There are a number of students who enter NAI who have not taken level 1 of a world language. Either they're new to our district, they did not take level 1 in 8th grade in one of our middle schools, or they wish to change their language in high school, doing a different language. Many of these students are, and they will be placed into Spanish 1 instead of the language of their choice. And there's a recommendation that we'll look at in a little more detail on slide 6, so more information on that. Also, we're extremely proud of the ability and successes of our students. First and foremost, that we found that there's really a need to assess our students at the national level. Historically, we have offered national exams that are provided by our national language associations. Each language has a specific association. Many of our staff members are members of those associations. But unfortunately, a few years back, when we changed our number system to align with other districts, this now made our students required to take a test they weren't really prepared for. Typically, it was 1 level higher. But after talking and discussing with these organizations, changes have been made to the exams. They're typically updated every year, and they are now more aligned with each level, which is great because our students are now able to take those exams at the level that they're currently in at North Allegheny. Now, in addition, due to the organization's dues and fees, the national exams, I can tell you, are not offered to 8th grade level 1 students. So that would be a challenge. Another challenge for our department is the attrition of students, especially at the upper levels in grades 11 and 12. A couple months ago, we surveyed students. We asked them why they might be leaving a language, and most cited only needing 2 years for college or wanting to take other electives. We know the program of studies is very robust at Nash. And they wanted to take other electives that were more closely aligned with their interests and career interests in pursuing outside of high school. We have repeatedly looked into adding additional language to our department. This is something that has come up frequently in the past in discussions within and outside of our department, and expanding course offerings. This certainly comes with increased challenges such as budgets, adding staff members, as we have looked into and looking at comparator districts, a lack of certified teachers in world language, and lastly, low student interest. And then finally, we noticed a lack of content-specific professional development in Western PA. I, like my colleagues, certainly crave knowledge, lifelong learner. I'm very passionate about what I teach in my language especially. But unfortunately, offerings of professional development and world language education are usually only offered at the national level, and they require travel. This upcoming November, there's a conference in Philly, so it's not too far, but it's certainly outside of our area here. And we would welcome the opportunity to host professional development opportunities, or perhaps even create our own. We certainly have a very capable staff, and that's something that we can certainly look into, but it's currently a challenge.
So after this year of review, we have come up with 8 recommendations. Our first recommendation is to continue our world language philosophy, which closely aligns with the North Allegheny mission statement and the philosophy of the American Council of Teachers of Foreign Language. It reads that we at North Allegheny believe that a world language program should foster students and support the student recognition of the world as a global society of diverse languages and cultures. North Allegheny also responds to the very practical need of its students to be prepared for higher learning at the collegiate level and beyond. Therefore, a successful world language program will enable students to develop self-awareness and insight into cultural differences while acquiring necessary skills to communicate in a language other than their own. We also adhere to the 6 C's of language learning. That is communication, culture, connections, comparisons, communities, and critical thinking. We also recommend to offer uninterrupted language instruction from introductory to terminal courses at the middle and high school levels, including multiple pathways to commence language studies. Mr. Viscari will describe that in the next slide. We would like to explore additional testing opportunities within the languages, such as an OPI, proficiency exams, stamp exams, national exams, because this could potentially offer more opportunities for our students with scholarships, awards, and college entrance exams. We would like to continue the offerings of our 4 current languages. This will also be discussed further in an additional slide. We want to continue to research, expand, and enhance resources and opportunities for students, explore language or content-specific professional development, as we saw was a opportunity for growth. And we want to continue to offer curriculum and instruction based on our national standards. And we'd also like to continue to monitor and create common assessments where we not only assess our students within the level of the language, but across the various languages.
Okay, recommendation 2, we'll look in a little more detail, and I'm just going to read it to you. Offer uninterrupted language instruction from introductory to terminal courses at the middle and high school levels, including multiple pathways to begin language studies. This has been a concern of our department for several years. There are school years when level 1 is only offered in Spanish at NAI, and this creates a ripple effect, as you probably can imagine. One reason, students who have signed up for maybe French, German, or Latin cannot take this course, obviously. And 2, students entering NAI from other districts, either a public school district or a private school, they cannot study their first language of choice. They really don't have a choice. They are forced to take a specific language. It also eliminates a pathway of students who wish to start a second language, which does frequently happen, as well as those who did not successfully complete level 1 in middle school and need to repeat that language. It also drastically reduces the number of students in languages other than Spanish, while then filling those Spanish classes with students who did not elect that language. So sometimes we think that students that are not taking Spanish maybe are not taking a language, but they are taking a language. They're just going into a language that is being offered in that specific master's schedule. Historically, we have recorded that approximately 55 to 75 new students enter NAI each year after scheduling. Almost all, as you can imagine, if not all, they want to take a world language and they really need to take a world language, we would strongly encourage them to, especially for colleges. And it's definitely true that many of them choose to study Spanish, but there would be students who do express interest in other languages. For example, if a course, we'll say a French course, has 12 students that have requested to take that course at the time of scheduling, it's highly likely that 5 to 10 additional students who are new to NA will express interest in that course from April, March until August. So that would increase that total number from around 12 to 17 to about 22. So it's the recommendation of our department that level 1 courses are offered each year as it fits in the master schedule in order to really best serve the needs of all of our students and provide them with their opportunities of choice in their first language of choice.
Slide 7 is recommendation number 4. It is our recommendation that we continue to offer our 4 current languages at North Allegheny. The programs have demonstrated strength and success and continue to afford our students opportunities in scholarship, travel, certifications, honor societies, and the highest levels of proficiency. In multiple studies, it has been shown that these languages take the least amount of time to gain proficiency and thereby success. These languages also support our emerging language population, our ELL population, as the grammatical structures of these languages are most commonly aligned to English. Currently, the department is not looking to add additional languages. This is due to multiple factors, such as lack of student interest, the inability to staff programs, the amount of time needed to attain proficiency, and the ability for students to pursue these languages in programs in the community. We also continue to look at other districts that offer these other languages. Unfortunately, many of these are losing these programs are being cut. Although some of them are successful, we are unfortunately seeing cuts to those type of programs, again, due to those aforementioned problems. We do, however, want to continue to research additional programs and ways to explore to offer other languages to our program. Thank you again to Dr. Highland and to the members of the board for allowing us this time and opportunity to highlight our program and look to our future. I'd also like to thank Mr. Duramo, Mr. Smith, and Dr. Bowman for their guidance and leadership during this curriculum review period. Their support, dedication, and direction have been completely invaluable, especially to me, but I know to the entire department. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you two so much for the presentation. Mr. McClure.
Sure, thank you very much. And actually, just as clarification for those in the audience, recommendation number 3 doesn't appear on your slides, but it does appear in the full report. It seems a little disjointed as you look at this. Say, well, wait a minute, what happened to number 3? So for the folks in the audience here, there is a recommendation 3 in there, and we see that in the full report. So, but thank you for expanding on the work you've done to look at other opportunities in other languages. That's perhaps the elephant in the room here this evening, because we have some folks coming to speak about that very topic. And thanks for explaining that. And we may have some additional questions on the process and how you came up with those conclusions, but I think you addressed that pretty well. Thank you.
Ms. Britton-Dozier.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner, and thank you for your presentation this evening, as well as the comprehensive report that you submitted as well. One question I have, I understand the challenges in offering other languages, and even when I was in school, there was a challenge in offering all the languages that students were interested in. But do we offer club opportunities in other languages, and if so, can you discuss those opportunities?
We have a very long list of clubs, especially at NASH. I can't really speak to NAI. You might be able to answer that a little bit better for me, but there's a lot of cultural clubs. There is an Asian student community. There is a American Sign Language group that meets, which ironically, that was in our survey several years ago. Sign language was our number 1 requested language that we did not offer, followed by Italian. There is an Italian club at our high school as well that does language and more culture that is offered in those groups because they only meet maybe once a month.
So would that be a possibility to maybe beef up clubs and offer, if we can't pull it into the curriculum, maybe have other offerings where we can address some of those interests?
Not only is my passion languages, but I was also part of NASH's engagement committee, and we are always looking for ways to get the kids more engaged and involved in school. So absolutely, that would be, I could go at it at two different fronts.
Great, thank you.
And I'll just add in that a few years back, it hasn't run in the last year, but there was what was called Foreign Lingo Club. And there were some of the students in that club, I don't think they're here now, but they were here earlier. And they started that really at COVID, and that was a student run with the assistance of a couple of world language staff members. I know I hosted students in my classroom in Marshall, and they explored all languages that they or their family had grown up speaking. And that was a wonderful opportunity. So I served as a sponsor, and they created activities. It started virtually over COVID, but then it came in person. And numbers would fluctuate, go back and forth, the number of students, just because of so many activities happening after school. But we find, especially at the middle school, clubs are the best opportunity to find students' passions. So we love clubs, especially at middle school as well.
That was part of our reason for the PA State Seal of Biliteracy as well. That is offered to any student that they have to attain certain English standards as well. There's a full rubric. But if they demonstrate proficiency in any other language via some sort of test, they're able to earn that state seal of biliteracy, which they can then take to college with them or into the workforce.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Hardy.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. Thank you so much to you and the full team's work that went into this report and presentation. I really enjoyed it. I really appreciate the work your department has done to ensure that all our middle schoolers have a chance to try all 4 language offerings before they choose which language they're going to commit to. That's just fabulous for the students. It was slightly illogical process before that they had to go through. So I really appreciate that. And I this is a frustration I've heard in the community about how if you want to change at NAI, want to change your language, you just can't. It's just not offered. And so I really appreciate you making that a recommendation that every language has a level 1 offering. I wanted to ask about, you mentioned a lack of interest in students in offering an additional language, and you surveyed all the students or a lot of students in world language as part of your review. Did you ask them if, in your questionnaire, if they were interested in another language or what they would? You mentioned.
We did not. In our interim review, we did, and that's where we repeatedly in our last review and our interim review, the students were not interested. When we offered the other classes, we had classes that were wanting to run with 3 and 4 students. It's hard to attain proficiency. Kids want immediate fulfillment. I want to learn it, I want to be able to speak it, I want to be able to speak it tomorrow. And when you look at the languages that we offer, that offers the proficiency in the fastest amount of time. And some of our other languages that are being requested, it takes much, much longer to attain that proficiency. And you don't get it in 184 school days, 5 days a week.
Understood. Appreciate that. You mentioned also an obstacle would be being able to find staff and staffing, teaching staff to teach courses. Do we also have challenges with that with the 4 languages that we currently have?
Currently, no. We've hired teachers in every language.
Except Latin.
Latin, the last time we had to hire was about 7 or 8 years ago, but I think we've hired a German teacher, several French teachers, and multiple Spanish teachers over the past couple of years, and we always have several applicants.
I will say the biggest challenge, the difference between if it's a position for a contract and a position for long-term sub. And most recently, that example was last year, hiring long-term sub French. The number of applicants, you can check the number of applicants, it's very low. If you're offering a contract, it's much more likely there's going to be a higher number of applicants. And that's just not North Allegheny. I have many colleagues and college friends that are teaching in other states, and it's really worse in other places. So we're seeing a big difference, and I think we're seeing it in other subject areas as well, but the difference between hiring for a long-term sub and hiring for a contracted teacher.
We did struggle with German 2 years ago as well, because we didn't know we had the need until August. And any German teacher that was out there had already taken a full-time position, and it was a long-term sub position. not willing to leave a full-time position for a long-term sub.
Thank you.
Dr. Gibbs.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. First, I just want to say that 2 of my kids did the Latin sequence when they were at NA, and they really enjoyed it, and they found it to be really helpful to them as they went through college, as well as other parts of life. So kudos for that. I think that was, I didn't expect it to be so helpful to them, but it really was. So kudos to that. So my question is, the program begins in 7th grade. Is there any value or logic to thinking about starting earlier? To thinking about introducing foreign language, say, in
We looked at this in our last review, and everything comes at a cost, not just a budgetary cost, but a cost to other programs, to other disciplines. And unfortunately, at this time, languages aren't a tested subject. And so a lot of times tested, though I will show you the research as long as a mile that our discipline actually supports math, supports English, supports other disciplines. But it all comes at a cost. And so if you're going to offer languages earlier, what are we taking out of the middle school day? What are we taking out of the elementary day?
but maybe we should look at that.
Mrs. Blackburn.
So I'm going to answer something with Dr. Gibbs's. Way back when I ran for school board, that was something I wanted, was to get foreign languages in at the elementary level, because it's actually easier for a younger child to learn a foreign language. And so that was a goal. 12 years later, here I am, still isn't happening. But what they did try to do with a pilot program is at the elementary schools, they did offer a pilot program of languages right after school, and not enough people signed up for it. People weren't interested and didn't sign up. It failed miserably, I hate to say. Doesn't mean that now,
I taught it.
you know,
I taught the French.
were you one of them?
I was the French teacher.
I had my kids in the Spanish, but I'm told very few signed up. You know, people, it just, for whatever reason. And
it was
they
was
did
after
try it.
school,
It was
so
right
we're
after
competing
school.
Against orchestra, against band, against sports, so it's a competition.
But that's what happened. I said, well, what about, you know, during the school day? But they really couldn't find the time. That's what
That
happened.
was before the new middle school day. We spent hours trying to draft schedules in which it would fit.
Yeah. So unfortunate, but because I actually think it is proven that you can teach a foreign language to an elementary child much more quickly. They absorb it all, you know. Oh, well, thank you.
Anyone else have questions or comments? No. My apologies. That's not how this meeting works. I want to echo Ms. Hardy's appreciation for the 7th grade program. I have a 7th grader this year. It was lovely that she was exposed to all of them. I never had anything like that. I wish I knew enough French to do better on the crossword puzzle and to know how to pronounce words when I see them written, because I have no idea. And I was a student who took 2 languages in high school, and it just hadn't occurred to me, like it wouldn't be possible for me to do that here without switching buildings, you know, and I think that's a disadvantage that we have with the 2 high schools, is it just eliminates those opportunities. And, you know, I'm all about efficiencies, and I understand we have guidelines for, you know, how large a class size should be. What is our threshold for what a class, the enrollment, just
Max?
no, for a class to run, we need a certain number of students.
Yeah, I would answer it this way. It would depend on the number of sections that potentially a teacher has available in their schedule. So if they're fully maxed out at 6 courses, then probably not. But if there is room where they have room for a 6 course, and there's a class that is that is a terminal course and we don't want that course to end, I would suggest that we would allow that to happen. However, the problem that I think that you would have with this is that you have multiple languages. You have 4 classes. And so which language would you pick if you were going to go ahead and do that? And I think maybe you could do 1 potentially, but when you start getting into the other languages, then that's 4 FTEs that could be problematic.
Dr. Howland, do you mean one additional one in addition to Spanish or just the Spanish?
I'm saying if you had Spanish, if you had German, if you had French, and you had Latin, the question is when those kids move in from other schools, are they forced to take 1 language or would they have 4? And if you have 4 different options for those kids to take a course, that becomes very problematic in terms of staffing. Does that answer that?
Yes, I can absolutely understand that. I just, as a board member and a parent, it hadn't occurred to me about those, what did you say, 50 to 75 students who come in from other places after scheduling is completed, and whether that is something that should be considered when scheduling world language. I am not someone who does the scheduling, but that had never occurred to me. And I would like to provide those opportunities if it made sense. And that was just something I hadn't considered before.
I would add, my thinking, having been the principal at NAI and those kids coming in, my recollection of 50 to 70 might be a little high. I'd like to verify those numbers just to make sure that in fact, we're on the same page with those numbers.
But I appreciate you bringing that up, and maybe it's something we can look into more. And let's see, I was also curious. So you went out and you interviewed other schools, and I was wondering, what were your key takeaways from talking to other districts and how they handled their world language program?
Yeah, I talked to many other districts. The first takeaway was they were so honored that we were talking with them because they had seeked out our program and what we were doing, especially with the CHS. And all of them were asking, how did you start your CHS program? How did you make a partnership with a university in your area? And LaRoche is our partnership, which is invaluable to have in our community, and working with not only world language, but working with other areas. So the first takeaway was we're doing something right with CHS. The number of students that are enrolled in that are taking advantage of earning those credits, not just in an AP course, but in our level 4 and our level 5 as well. That's considered CHS. So definitely something that I think we're doing very well. The other takeaway was we of course asked about honors and academic. Do you have different pathways? And in many of them, some of the larger districts also had the honors and academic. And we wanted to see, how are those classes different? Are students being challenged differently in an honors class? Is it the same type of assessment? And a lot of them got into that it's different type of assessment. It's really asking students to think more critically, having them dig into the content more deeply. And that's something that I know we as a department want to continue doing better as, looking into how are our honors courses really challenging students to think more deeply about the content, not just because the tests are harder or it's moving more quickly. We know that they want to try to absorb as much content as possible, but how are those classes going to differ in an honors and academic class? And some of the other schools really gave us a few different ideas that we've already taken away. And I just think the other was that we did ask about, did students have the opportunity to start any language that's offered in the high school? And all of the schools we spoke to did say that their level 1 was offered in the high school. They thought it was important that they did offer that first course in their high school setting. Sometimes there were lower numbers on years, but they said if it could fit, just like Dr. Hyman was talking about, if it could fit in the teacher's schedule, they always would run that class.
We also interviewed not only comparator districts across the state, and you guys looked at outside of the state as well.
It was just a matter.
But, and then we looked at local districts that aren't necessarily comparative districts when we looked at offering different languages. And we looked at specifically 5 different schools that are offering languages that we do not offer. And it always came, again, at a cost. They did not offer the same only 2 other school districts offered the same languages that we did, plus additional languages. And then unfortunately, 2 of the districts are looking to cut their programs so that they're going down to maybe only 2 or 3 languages. So it was due to lack of enrollment, lack of staffing as well, because the success of those departments and the success of those languages are also due to the teacher. And all the kids were surveyed, they're like, oh, it's because of the teacher. I like this teacher and I keep with it because of this teacher.
Those schools that were cutting languages, were they cutting maybe a non-traditional language that they had added? Okay. And you said that was happening at multiple different schools?
And some
'Cause
have already done
so
it, others are looking to.
I did some Google searches for Pennsylvania and in Mandarin Chinese, and there were some schools where it came up they had it, but then if you clicked on their program of studies, it wasn't there,
We
which,
contacted the departments and they're like, no, we haven't offered it for 2 or 3 years. I don't know why they keep it in their program of studies. Maybe
these didn't have it
because
in the program of studies. It showed up on Google, like,
On your-
which made me think maybe they had it
some of
before,
them
but
have
it
on
didn't
their
anymore.
websites.
Okay,
There's a couple
yes.
on their websites, and then we did it when you contact the
Yeah.
department chair or the principal,
Mhm.
you find out that it's not being offered.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you looking into that and sharing that information with us. I think there's,
Question.
oh, Ms. Modick.
Thanks. I just wanted to express gratitude to the foreign language department. I am in my last few days, the days are very numbered, of Spanish, and I've taken Spanish since 7th grade, right? It was awesome. And like, I think I didn't realize when I started how impactful it was going to be. Like, I'm looking to minor in Spanish when I am in college. And I also had a moment where I was like, oh, this is really cool, because I had a class that like a new girl walked in who had just moved to the US, like was not familiar with anything, spoke very, very little English. And my teacher, because I was just in elective class, was like, hey, does anyone know any Spanish? And I'm like, I kind of know a tiny bit of Spanish, like maybe a little bit more than hi, I would like to think. And I made friends with her. And like, so, you know, half the time it's through Google Translate and half the time it's me making horrible grammatical errors that Senora would be like, that's not right. But we get along, and it's really cool to learn that like you can make mistakes while you're speaking with someone who knows the language, because if you're meeting someone who knows a little bit of English, but not, you know, all of the details and intricacies, you still know what they mean if you're a native speaker. So you can still make friends, still make connections. And I think it's really important and really valuable. So thanks, and please keep supporting the program.
And currently in this Modick's class as well, there's a foreign exchange student that is not a Spanish speaker. She is a French speaker, and that student has now made connections via Spanish with all of the kids in my class.
I was in ski club with her, and I love to ski, and I made friends with her, and it was super awesome, with a couple of other exchange students too. So yes, in my class, and I learned a teeny bit of French from her too.
Thank you so much, Ms. Modick, for sharing your perspective as a student.
Mrs. Warner, can I add one other thing?
Absolutely.
Marcy, maybe you can help me out with this. I recall back in the days when I was principal at NAI, we did offer Mandarin Chinese. However, it wasn't necessarily the best mode of instruction because it was done virtually, and that was before COVID. And so we did our very best to offer Mandarin Chinese. Could you just talk a little bit about that program if you remember it? I hope you do.
It morphed several times, because, and I might get one ahead of the other, and I can't remember the exact sequence, but at first, I believe we partnered with Beatty and the Confucius Institute. It was an online virtual learning where the students were connected with a teacher. I believe the teacher was actually at Beatty, so that person was in the United States. We had about 5 students that took the course, and this, again, was before COVID, so maybe, I hope that for one thing that came from those kids is they did better in COVID and they learned how to online learn, but it just wasn't, our students like their teachers. They like that face-to-face learning, and having that learning at a distance learning was very difficult for them. That program was discontinued after 2 years. Then we tried to do our own program where we partnered with a company that was in, I believe, Beijing, and there was a teacher there. That also had its problems because we have to be state certified, and we have certain skills and certain things that we are held to. That was not the case. And so that teacher would often cancel class, wouldn't show up at class. We had some problems with inappropriateness and the way they were talking. And so that program also got discontinued because after 2 years, it went from 8 students to 2 students.
Mrs. Blackburn.
So I will verify they were teachers who were brought in, and it was through the A.W. Beatty Career Center. I've been on that board for 12 years, and they met them all one of the difficulties with continuing it is we could no longer bring in, we brought in 7 to 11 instructors for several years, and then we couldn't get any more to come. Yeah, they couldn't come anymore. And so even though it was online, they were actually in the States, but we couldn't get the instructors. I'm going to say in 11, but I'm not.
Yeah, and then that's when I believe it was 13 that we then partnered with a different company.
Yes, but that was the problem. But they were here in the States, you're correct. It was online, but all the different schools in the consortium could be online with them and so forth. But there was interest loss, and we couldn't get the instructors. It was difficult. And you're absolutely correct as far as certifications and so forth too.
We also,
It's a
after that,
challenge.
looked, and I believe that it was in 2013 that we ran a report through PDE, and there was only one certified, and I believe it was Mandarin teacher in the entire state, and they were in eastern Pennsylvania, not willing to move. They didn't have a job. That was registered
Yeah,
to PDE.
it's a lot more difficult than I think a lot of people would realize the whole process.
Thank you,
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Blackburn. One thing that you mentioned in the report about attrition, and it also came up with our students at our meet and greet with student council this evening, is that one of the great things about NA is we have so many different opportunities and so many different types of classes for students to take. And one of the students this evening was sharing, there's just not enough room in my schedule to take all of the classes that I want. And I think, and that's not your guys' problem, but I think it certainly impacts your program. And I personally have concerns because now we have a new finance class that is required by the state, and I'm worried that's going to take even more time away from students who want to pursue electives like world languages or tech ed or art or business, all these great opportunities that we have. And I'll throw this out there, not for you guys, but for the people in the room, is I know Fox Chapel offers their health class online over the summer. And I'm wondering if maybe that's something we can explore, like a class that's required like health, or this new finance class that would be required, if there's opportunities that students could take those outside the school day, which would open up more opportunities for our wonderful elective programs like the world languages. And the only other thing, I guess I would like to thank you again. And when I first looked at this presentation, I was also confused about the lack of number 3, but then I really appreciated how you focused on the recommendations that were most important to you, and you had the list of the 8, and then you really homed in on the 2. And so I appreciate you. I actually liked this format, and I really appreciate all the work that you and your team put into this presentation and the report. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. It's wonderful to look at our program again.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And now we will move on to our student activities report with Ms. Modick and Ms. Pagnato.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. So student council's up first. A teacher appreciation lunch was held on May 10th to celebrate and thank all of the staff and administrators who have made such a great school year. Additionally, student council is excited for the end of year carnival event to help celebrate the achievements of students this year and throughout their NA careers. Additionally, Knitting and Crochet Club on April 26th yarn bombed the Nash Library, which means that they covered a quarter of the library with knitted and crocheted decorations. This project was the focus of much of their year, and it came to life in a beautiful way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. To continue with the language theme, students in German Club watch an authentic German children's movie while enjoying popcorn with a typical German soft drink called Schepesi. In their upcoming meeting, students will make a traditional German ice cream treat called spaghetti ice. The dish looks like spaghetti, but it's actually vanilla ice cream extruded through a noodle press and topped with strawberry sauce and shaved white chocolate. It is a staple on virtually every ice cream cafe in Germany. In addition to this fun, sweet treat, students will be competing in a German trivia game for fun prizes at their last meeting. Anatomy and Physiology Club met with psychiatrist Dr. Getz to come speak with club members about the careers in psychology. It was an eye-opening experience about the amount of schooling and effort needed to become a psychiatrist. It is very beneficial to hear from him and help them understand what he does on a daily basis. He has worked with famous Pittsburgh athletes in the area. They also met with Dr. Colbedino from UPMC. He spoke with the students about volunteer opportunities in the hospitals. They also participated in a Crafting for Cause, where they made paper flowers for pediatric patients at AHN. They were able to make around 500 paper flowers. And lastly, Student Council helped with NAI's Longest Table event on May 1st. They also helped run a Cultural Heritage Week to support diversity in our school. They ran a staff appreciation breakfast Friday, May 10th, and are also planning to have a Rita's ice cream cart for staff on Tuesday, May 28th for Teacher Appreciation Week.
Thank you. Would either of you like to present the items for board action next week?
Yes, thank you. The first up is approval for the NAI Fall Play, which is Murder Can Be Habit Forming. The next one is the NAI Spring Play selection, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. The next one is for the PA Governor STEM competition in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which would be to approve the trip there. Next is National Speech and Debate Championships in Des Moines, Iowa, and just approval of that trip. Next is National Catholic Forensics League Tournament in Chicago, Illinois. And lastly is the 2024 TSA National Competition in Orlando, Florida. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Modick. Any comments on those items? I will just express my gratitude for the NAI Play sponsors who have already got the fall and the spring on our agenda for approval. I appreciate them working ahead on that. Next, we move to Ms. Hardy and the curriculum report.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. This month, there are 7 items for board action and 2 items for information only in the curriculum report. Board action items include a purchase agreement for Study Island, a purchase agreement for Nearpod software, a purchase agreement for STAR assessment software, a renewal agreement for Ames Web Plus testing software, and a student expulsion agreement. The information-only items include student teacher requests for 6 Duquesne University students and information on a foreign exchange student.
Any comments, Ms. Hardy?
Thank you. Mrs. Warner, I do have comments. I just wanted to make the board aware, in case they hadn't read it in the capsule last Friday, that the STAR testing software item comes as a result of a thorough review of NA's current assessment program and MTSS program after staff, students, and parents had complaints about ExactPath, consistency issues with our MTSS programs, and the request for a deep dive into our math, ELA, and science scores in the district. Led by Dr. Dowell and Mr. Smith, a committee of administrators and teachers reviewed other testing options and recommend the change to STAR testing because 1, these assessments will take less time to administer, giving 4th to 8th grade teachers 2 more hours per school year to teach students. 2, the program creates more usable data than ExactPath does, producing reports per district, building, grade level, and teacher, and it will be easier for administrators to see what's going on with our students. And 3, this approach will provide a cost savings for the district of over $45,000 in the first year alone. The team is really excited to make this recommendation and this change and are really looking forward to the opportunities it will provide the district to better use data and better help students learn. Thank you.
Any questions on the items in the curriculum report? Seeing none, we'll move on to the finance report. Mr. Weniger.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. There are a lot of items in the finance report. I hope that means next month we're going to have a slow month, Mr. Hauser. No. Cram it all in before the end of the year. There will be 13 items for action or board approval next week and 2 information-only items. The action items, there's 2 monetary donations. The third is the A.W. Beatty Career Center budget. The fourth is the 2019 bond issuant rebate calculation engagement letter with Meyer Dussel. The fifth is the student athletic and volunteer insurance coverage. The sixth are the participation fees for the 24-25 school year. The seventh is a public school facility improvement grant of approximately $3 million that we're hoping to approve to apply for this. The eighth are student expenditures for March. Ninth is the insurance coverage, or GL renewal. 10th is accounts payable list. The collateral securities report, budget transfers, a custody agreement, and the two information-only items are our ending cash balances and the 23-24 April forecast.
Any comments, Mr. Winter?
Just the April forecast is still projecting approximately a $3.5 million surplus, which is fantastic. There are still some risks out there, certainly with the CLR and any refunds that are forthcoming. But I think we feel confident that, you know, with the pluses and minuses that are still out there, we should end up around where we are right now. So,
Any other questions or comments on these items? Mr. Gibbs, Dr. Gibbs, my apologies.
No problem. I was just wondering, for the monetary donations, I'm just wondering if anything additional should be said. Like, are these, do we expect these every year, or this is something special? If you want to just comment.
So these are something special. So the one is Dr. I. Miller from Bradford Woods won an MVP award from the Pittsburgh Penguins. So this monetary donation will be utilized for the Bradford Woods specifically. And the other one, the Latin Club, reached out. It was the Pittsburgh Foundation, reached out and was able to procure a $2,000 donation to the Latin Club. So that'll be used for the Latin Club.
Any more comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Human Resources Report. Ms. Britton Dozier.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. This one. Is my mic on? It might- it's on. It's on.
Try Anisha's button, make sure both have to be on, usually you can make them work.
Hello, okay. Thank you. This month, we have 11 items in the HR folder for board action, which includes one item that is currently a placeholder, which is a tentative voting item for next week. The items include 1, resignations, 2, a memorandum of understanding, building technology coach, 3, memorandum of understanding, ELD facilitator, the placeholder item, which is a memoranda of understanding, bus driver incentive program, 5, creation of position, manager of grounds and fields, number 6, appointments, 7, wage/status changes, 8, leaves of absence, 9, recognition for additional education, 10, honoraria and club activities, and 12, supplemental contracts.
Any comments?
I have a couple of comments, thank you. Regarding item number 4, the placeholder item concerning the memoranda of understanding for the bus driver incentive program has not been finalized, as the details are still being worked out with our employee groups. We do anticipate voting on it next week, and therefore chose to include it in this week for consideration. And then number 5, the manager of grounds and fields is the final piece of the reorganization of our facilities department and our continued work to elevate the standards of the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the Human Resources Report? Seeing none, we will move on to Mr. McClure with the Property and Supplies Report.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. We have 4 items for consideration next week. The first being the food service management contract, the second school lunch prices for next year, the appointment of AHERA and ADA compliance officer, and the snow plowing and salting services contract.
Any comments, Mr. McClure?
Yes, ma'am, of course. First item, food service management contract. If anybody opened that contract attachment, it's 82 pages long, and I just am in awe of the amount of work that goes into doing this. Thanks to Jamie Nichols, who really worked to carry this forward. So, and it's once again with Mets, so we're glad to see that. They've been very successful and very supportive of the district. School lunch prices are just a repeat of what they are this year, so no change there. Appointment of the compliance officers. Mr. Kirk is made the interim position for both of those. Snow plowing and salting services. Unfortunately, we only had one bid on this, which is something that we always push back on. However, this is the same company that has done the same services this year. It is a slight increase, but not beyond what we would experience from inflation over the 3 years since this last contract was done. And also, we've taken some of these and made them only if there's a whole series of buildings that we do in-house, and this is only if for some reason we had a mechanical issue, something like that. So some of those. And one item that's not on there that was going to be on there, and I have to give credit to Mr. Kirk and our energy advisor, Northeast Energy Advisors, who have identified, we were going to have a gas purchasing agreement in here this month, but what's really pretty neat is coming off of a mild winter, there's a surplus of natural gas. And they're seeing, our advisor said, wait another month, because we're hoping it's going to drop just a little bit more. And a shout out to those guys, because these are the guys that when we first separated from the AIU 5 or 6 years ago, we did an electric contract with these guys that beat the AIU contract by a 3-year term of $666,000. So we really respect this. It's an NA family that owns that company. So that's the other cool part about this. So, all right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions or comments on the property and supplies report? Seeing none, we will move on to the school board report with Mrs. Blackburn.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. We have quite a few different things with our NA Foundation grants. So our recommended action will be to accept the grants. And next week we'll go over the different numbers, and it's just fabulous news for us. It's a grand total of $30,707. So that's wonderful to see the foundation at work for North Allegheny. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Blackburn, for sharing that good news. Mr. McClure.
I'll expand on that just a little bit. So thanks again, of course, to the foundation. But as a reminder, it's still plenty of opportunity to sign up for the Taste of NA, which is next Thursday, not this Thursday. The board appreciates that I was pushing everybody in that direction earlier today. But seriously, this only happens because of the support of the public and students and parents, and raising money through events like the Taste of NA is the way we get it done. So please log on and click on that and sign up for that event next week.
Any other comments? Then we will move on to Dr. Gibbs and the student services report.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. There are 8 items for board action in the student services report and 1 item for information only. Items for board action include the AIU Comprehensive Services Agreement, a contract with River Therapies for speech and language therapy services, an educational services agreement with LearnWell Services, a blind visually impaired support service agreement with the Allegheny Intermediate Unit, special education transportation agreement, waterfront learning contract, Western PA School for the Deaf extended school year program, and Pace School ESY agreement. The information only item is a student teaching request for a student to spend some time at Ingomar Middle and Knight Elementary. It's part of their training.
Any comments, Dr. Gibbs?
No.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we will move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Hyland.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. There are 2 items for board consideration this month. The first is the NA Foundation financial review, and the second are our professional seminars and professional development.
Any comments on these items? Seeing none, we will move on to our speakers on non-voting items. We have 6 people who have signed up to speak. They will get 5 minutes. I believe some of you are new, so you will have 5 minutes to speak, and then we will ask if you cannot finish your comments in those 5 minutes, then you are always welcome to email us anything that you weren't able to get out, but the microphone will be turned off after 5 minutes. And this is an opportunity for you to share your comments with us. It is not a back and forth. And we will start with our first pre-registered speaker, John Wesley Okamoto Fordyce. And please share your address with us, your name and your address before you begin.
John Wesley Fordyce, address 871 West Eaglemore Road, Vicksburg, Pennsylvania, right down the road. So I want to apologize for my attire. I just got off a 12-hour shift. I'm a project manager at General Electric. I was asked to come here and speak on behalf of a good friend, professor at Robert Morris University. And she says that I should come up here and just speak from the heart. Just let you guys know, you guys are doing a terrific job. North Allegheny School District is one of the best school districts in the country. And I know how inclusive you guys want to be with different cultures and different. One of the things that she believes in, I also believe after listening to the last lecture and the presentation, is that 20% of your students are Asian descendants. You know, they speak Cantonese, Japanese, Chinese, and different dialects, but they're not being properly represented. You know, I understand your children took Latin school, Dr. Gibbs. You know, when I was on campus a while back, I maybe heard Latin, around the law school, but anywhere else, I heard different languages. But when you're coming to North Allegheny, it's not being provided. It's like being excluded when you're from a Japanese or Asian ancestry. I'm an AJA. And then when you go to North Allegheny, it's not being, but when you go to these other schools, Hampton, Shaler, Upper St. Clair, Paradise, Naperville, and some private schools, all these Asian languages are being offered as electives, not as groups, but as electives for higher learning. I know North Allegheny tried it a while back as an online program for, matter of fact, it was during COVID. And right there, I think that was just set up, it was a film experiment, But I want to apologize, I'm just reading my notes. But like I said, nearly 20% of your students are of Asian descent. And when we're going back, and then when other students are coming from different school districts come here, I took 2 years of a language that isn't represented at North Allegheny, so now they're having to be set back. And as North Allegheny, you guys set the mark. You are the mark. The other school districts are. I don't know, this was just a thought, this is what I've seen, and this is what I'm going to speak on. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next pre-registered speaker is Ram Kalpathy.
I'm not wrong, I'm his wife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I couldn't hear him well. Is this mic on?
If you could share your name and your address for us, we would appreciate
I'm
it.
Dr. Sripriya Raman, and my husband Ram Kalpathy is here too. He's a physician as well. Address is 325 Ozona Lane, Mars, PA 16046. May I start? All right, good evening, everyone. I would like to thank the board for allowing me to speak here today. Our family has immensely benefited from the teachers and resources available through the district, and we are very grateful for that. As I consider NA my extended family, I take the liberty here to provide some constructive feedback that could and would benefit its students to achieve greater heights in their academics for decades to come. I've emailed this if you want to pull it up in your laptop. My oldest daughter, Trisha Kalpati, is a graduating senior from Nash this year. If she gets a chance to speak anywhere about her schooling, I can assure you she would rave about how happy she has been here at NA and how much she will miss this place when she goes to college. During her college application process this year, we did come across a few things that we certainly wish NA had handled better. First, high school transcript issue. Trisha was several grades advanced in math classes and had the privilege of enjoying Ms. Volpe's AP Calc BZ, one of the toughest classes, as you may know, in 8th grade. Up until the end of her 11th grade, her school transcript was included all of her high school level courses she took in the middle school, including her Calc BC. However, when the district moved to a different grading platform, Power School, in August 2023, the official transcripts no longer included these high school courses taken before 9th grade. Unbeknownst to Trisha and us, her parents, this new official transcript, which lacked the information about her taking one of the important high school math classes, the Calc BC, AP, was sent to all colleges she applied to under STEM majors of her choice. I think this is a big oversight from the administration, which could have been and should have been avoided if only parents and students were given a copy of their transcripts to review when the systematic change was made, or the staff, including school counselors, who would have known this change, raised a voice of concern to rectify it before college submissions happened. Better yet, such big changes probably should not be implemented at the beginning of the academic year when seniors are applying to colleges. When we asked the principal in February, that's when we first came to know about it, he mentioned school counselors will provide a letter referencing the high school courses taken in middle school on the student application if the student requests. That is, if they know it and request for it. But it was already too late, as all of Trisha's applications were due by the first week of January. We met with the assistant superintendent, thank you, Dr. Daramo, several weeks ago, who assured us that the transcript would be changed soon and sent us an updated draft. When we got the mid-year transcript last week, it still did not include the middle school courses yet. So maybe coming soon. Second, cumulative GPA in high school. Trisha, who is a straight A student and who voluntarily maximized her APs every year, was told in her senior year that she was class rank 5, and there were 15 students ahead of her. She was not nominated for the RPA medal, which is equivalent to $160,000 of guaranteed scholarships for students excelling in math and science, because there were several students ahead of her with her higher cumulative GPA. Not understanding how that could be given her academic profile, we asked more questions. To our shock, we were told that the cumulative GPA does not include the classes taken before 9th grade. So even though Trisha was more advanced than her peers in math and completed AP Calculus BC in 8th grade, that was not included in her cumulative GPA calculation, pushing her down from potentially being class rank 1 to class rank 5 with 15 students ahead of her. Trisha and us were devastated, to say the least, as we were not made aware of this consequence when Trisha was given the option to take Calc BC in 8th grade. Even though NA does not officially report class rank for college applications, the college rank is being used internally for scholarship nominations like the RPA medal. Also, the students can self-report their class rank to colleges and external scholarships. So we want this rectified for other students junior to Trisha's class, like our second daughter in the same boat, who will all be penalized for being academically advanced and approved by NA. Third, AP French. My daughters have been helpless for the last few years for choosing French as their world language. I'm sure many of you are aware that the teacher who teaches Honors French 2 and French 3 in NAI has not taught the class for a significant amount of time during the academic year, at least for the last 4 years. Though both my girls and their peers brought up their concerns to the principals at NAI multiple times,
30 seconds.
Proper remedial action never took place. Even when the substitute teacher comes, they don't have access to the curriculum and they end up watching movies frequently, sometimes even in English. So they are not able to take the AP exam and thus not able to get the college credit. So we not only lost precious time, but also lost money because we have to now pay for her world language in college. So I missed the first part, but if you want to offer more languages, world languages, someone else mentioned about Asian languages too.
Your time
we are
is
happy
up.
to offer Indian languages. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for emailing your remarks to us already. Our next speaker is Sherry Shu.
Good evening. I'm Sherry Shu, a mother of two students currently at NAI and Carson Middle School. We live in 1175 Windmill Lane, Pittsburgh 15237. Today, I want to speak about adding an Asian language into the NA curriculum. Before that, I want to show my appreciation to the school board members and the superintendent, Dr. Highland, and the department chair, Mrs. Good, for spending their time communicating with me through emails and the meetings. Of course, and invited me to this meeting. When my older son entered middle school several years ago, I was shocked to realize that NA does not offer any Asian language at any level. Discussing this with many other parents, we were all very surprised that a school district which is known for its academic excellence do not offer any Asian language. Here is why I think it is important to include one. Please see the slides of number 1 to 4. About 60% of the world population live in Asia. After English, the second most spoken language in the world is Mandarin Chinese, and the third is Hindi. 3 of the top 5 largest economies in the world are Asian countries, China, Japan, and India. And many of our neighboring school districts are offering Asian language, which I try to personally confirm with personal contact, but I would love to learn the differences. It's different from Mrs. Good's research. Shaler offered Japanese. Alderdice and Upper St. Clair offer Mandarin Chinese and Japanese. Hampton and Avonworth offer Mandarin Chinese. Here I want to share a personal story from an NA parent who is the Mandarin teacher in Avonworth School District and built a Mandarin language program from scratch. She wished to come tonight, but unfortunately she's unavailable. So with her permission, I will speak for her here. Before she started teaching there 8 years ago, Avonworth had offered Mandarin Chinese through the Confucius Institute online learning module, which is similar to what you have heard NA have tried to offer years ago. But the enrollment was declining. So while NA canceled the Mandarin online program, Avonworth decided to try the in-person class with Mrs. Lee. In the beginning, it was very difficult as only a few students enrolled. Now, 8 years after she started, her class has become the most popular world language course in Avonworth, surpassing French, Latin, and Spanish. She's currently teaching 6 classes with overtime pay at all levels, and the next year she will be teaching 7 classes due to the high demand. And lastly, Mrs. Lee wants me to emphasize the point that she endured a lot of hardship to develop this program, not only to serve the 2% Asian population in the district, but even more so, more importantly, for the majority non-Asian student to have an opportunity to explore a different culture. Personally, I know the girl in Shaler School District who traveled to Japan through their language program and enthusiastically shared her experience with me, and a boy who wanted to practice Mandarin with me because he enjoyed his Mandarin class so much. And we know many children interested in Japanese and Korean culture due to the popularity of Japanese comic books, animation, and K-pops. Many who are non-Asian, but have an intense interest in the languages and culture. While I believe that every language and culture should be preserved and appreciated, I do think providing an Asian language option is a way to first show NA is truly equipping our students with tools of languages and cultural education, which fits NA model, preparing all students for success in a changing world. And second, to show how NA acts on the initiative of NA Empower to help create a more inclusive community that recognizes, honors, and celebrates differences. I believe we can overcome the challenges to make a successful program here. I think it is time for all 100% of NA kids, not just the 19.5% of Asian students, to learn about Asian language and culture. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lucy Zhang.
Hi, hello. So my name is Liang Hui Zhang, Lucy, can call me Lucy. So I live in the 10515 Hills Drive, the Wexford. So my boy is a 6th grade boy and in Marshall Middle School. So my family moved here from Chicago 2 years ago. So in the 2022 summer, I spent a lot of time to search a school for my boy. So then, because my boy is a competitive athlete and a swimmer, I picked North Allegheny School District because of the excellent record on the math competition and the swimming team on the high school. Okay. Okay. So then we come here. However, I didn't realize North Allegheny didn't provide Chinese class. So my boy took Chinese class in Chicago, but in here he have to start Spanish. So I was in that time. I have to say I was shocked. So how can an excellent school district, such a large and an excellent school district, not provide Asian language? So I want to go to several points. If you go to the page 1, so it's a okay. Let's start from beginning. Sorry. So I want to say the North Allegheny say it's a world language program, but I want to be frankly say it's a West language program. It's not a world language program because Asian language is not included. The world is changing. So it's rapidly changing. Then if you look at the slide, number 1, the economic, the GPT American is 24 trillion, and Chinese is 19 trillion. Combine the India and Japan is over the American. So I want to ask how we prepare our kids better for next generation to prepare for this rapidly changing the globalized world. So and also, if you look at the page 6, so on the Pennsylvania, is a 57 high school provide Chinese class. As our North Allegheny, as the number 1 academic school in West Pennsylvania, and number 2 on the whole Pennsylvania state, we don't have any Asian class. So that's the one I feel is something not right. I know it's a lot of difficulty I appreciate all these teachers and committee members try so hard to provide this language before. But I think that even it's hard, is it possible we can still think about it? Can we, everything you start from beginning is hard. So is it possible we can try all kind of way to overcome in the beginning the parts and provide the Asian language to our kids to prepare them better for their future. So I want to address some of the challenges listed in the report provided by World Language Department. So the limited number of the certificate teachers in the language. So I think this is a struggle, we see the struggle. But I think advertising the job opportunity more broadly and increase the job visibility. So we sure we can attract more applicants. So if we believe if the North Energy is willing to put the hiring on the priority list, candidate will come. So remote offering, I don't believe remote learning gonna turn any golden days. So I agree with we don't do remote learning. So additional time it takes to achieve relative proficiency in this language. Every language takes 4 years to reach AP. It's not just Chinese. So it's not just Asian language. So, however, but if you will start early, even from middle school, it's even easier for the kids to pick up foreign language. So the prohibitive cost of the implementary this program. So we like the transparency, the school be represented about the estimated cost of starting a new program. But we understand the problem. But all these problems, we need to think about, do we need overcome them? Do we need to try our best to overcome them to prepare our kids? So other school districts have curtailed or eliminated a similar
30
program.
seconds.
We have some good success kids, I mentioned before. We have some bad kids, failed kids. However, this is the way we can work the best at the time to move the forward to prepare a better program for our kids. So I think I want to end my talk as I say, to learn Mandarin, it must be program.
Your time is up.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lan Deng.
Thank you very much, Board, Dr. Highland. I really wish Miss Marcy is here. I heard her presentation. After she finished, I went out and I spoke with her. And now, she doesn't have a chance to hear my part. I would like to further discuss with her. I'm Landon. I have two boys. Aaron, he's a ninth grader in NAI, and Lucas, he's an eighth grader in Marshall. And we live in 2508 Acorn Court, Wexford. Obviously, I'm here today to advocate for the addition of an Asian language to the world language curriculum. Now, I have prepared two personal stories to share in the beginning, but after talking with Miss Marcy, I decided I don't need to share those personal stories anymore, because it is very clear to me that Miss Marcy and the staff in the world language program, they believe in addition of additional languages. And they are just faced with challenges. They tried this before, they tried that before. They didn't know what didn't work, and they didn't know how to make the changes. Now, there are 2 points I would like to further discuss with Miss Marcy. One is in her report, right? One point is she mentioned in the report, the 4 current languages are the languages most closely related to English. That's her rationale to, continue to supply these 4 languages to the curriculum. However, in my mind, right, if you only including Western languages and Western cultures in your curriculum, and you are leaving out the Eastern languages, right? You leave something close to English in the curriculum, that actually does not align with the department's philosophy, right? What does the department say? The department say, we want to inspire, foster, and support our students to recognition of the world as a global society of diverse language and cultures. Right now, if you start from in diversity, you are not going to lead to diversity. The other point I saw in her report was, it says, our current 4 language offerings require the least amount of the time in order to obtain high levels of proficiency required for AP exams. Now, if you ask me, right, so I would say, yes, you can consider that a success criteria for a good world language program. However, AP exam is not the end game. It's not how we are trying to prepare all students for success in a changing world. An excellent world language program needs to go far beyond that. It needs to encourage critical thinking. It needs to provide our kids the skills and the knowledge, including language skills, to reach across the aisle to the other side, to people who are very different from us, and to bridge the differences. And it needs to foster the passing around of different cultures, different traditions. And that's what this country is based upon. We are a country based on immigrants and their descendants. So I think those are the 2 parts I would actually like to further discuss with her in her report, which I really do not agree. Now, when I spoke with Ms. Marcy after listening to her report, so I'm a scientist and naturally curious person, so I said, look, you mentioned some schools are more successful than others. Then did you ask them, what are the key criteria making those schools successful? She said, Shalo is very successful, Avonworth is very successful because they have excellent teachers. What a great point. Isn't excellent teachers the key, right? We have all the educators here to drive anything successful for a class, right? That's like a no-brainer. And the other thing she said is what is called the Allendale. That's a city, the school in the city. They are also very successful. They are partnering with University of
30
Pittsburgh.
seconds.
So they have like a pipeline of teachers who can come in and teach. Why don't we try that, right? Why don't we try that? We need to solve the problem. The number one key problem is the lack of excellent teachers. So let's be open-minded, because the biggest challenge is the inertia to change. Starting anything new is hard, period. We just have to have the belief that diversity and inclusion will prevail in the end. We need to be confident of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our final pre-registered speaker is Ava Shi. Ava Shi. My apologies if I've pronounced it wrong.
Thank you for having us, giving us this opportunity to share our thoughts. As both a Chinese teacher and a mother of two children. Oh, by the way, my name is Ying. Eva is my English name. I live in the 1511 Hillwood Square, Wexford, PA 15090. And before I should read all these notes I have, basically I just want to speak up for my son, because I'm the two children of a mother of two children, and during the pandemic, there's a picture. It just couldn't put it away from my mind. Is when my neighbor invited over to her house, and my son was wearing a mask, but at the same time, his hair was covered full of his face. And I don't know why, but when we actually see his PCP, the family doctor, and then have the counselor talk to him privately, I realize he doesn't like his face. So that's why he want to cover it all. And then because we moved from Pittsburgh Public School, because there are a lot of Asian community, and I have a lot of Asian friends over there. So when we moved here, it's because the excellency in this school district, and then also because the renting is really, really high. And then I feel like the education environment is better for my own son's sake. But when we were here, he couldn't have that kind of connection and then have that kind of self-identity. So it's kind of, I feel sad. I didn't know that, but then after the counselor told me, he's that kind of like a psychologist, low self-esteem, low confidence. And first of all, he doesn't like his face, his skin color, his ethnicity. That made me feel really, really sad, because I didn't know that until when he covered his whole face. That drew my attention. And then I asked him, he never told me that. I got that from the doctor. So that's why I just feel like just aiding the Asian language, not just like a Chinese, can actually help the kids who from all over the world to identify their true origin or their culture. And then even for my kids, it's hard for them to communicate with me or my family, relatives, or friends, because we travel back to Taiwan, but they don't understand the language they ask for. I'm the single mom here, so I have no families, not here. So just me and my kids. So I just feel like even I'm teaching, I'm actually a certified Chinese teacher. So I was not able to teach my own kids. And my son would say, he feel like he is American. But I told him, you are like a banana, outside, but inside, he just act like everybody else. But people still view him as a Chinese. And as a Chinese teacher, I was not able to teach my own son because he feel like school is not offering. He feels that it's useless. He doesn't need it because school didn't ask for it. And then not many people are speaking in Chinese in that kind of environment. So that made me feel really sad, And I still write a lot of points. I don't know if I still have time. I probably just read the very bottom one, the conclusion. I urge the school board to seriously consider the immense benefit of adding Chinese to our world language curriculum By doing so, we not only prepare our students for success in an increasing interconnected world, but also foster cultural understanding, cognitive development, and lifelong learning within our community. The benefits of learning Chinese, such as its growing importance in global business, trade, and diplomacy, highlight how proficiency in Chinese can enhance students' career perspectives and the cultural understanding. And I feel like my kids, children who come to school from non-English backgrounds, we should still give them the same opportunity to develop further proficiencies in their first language, because the language is not just the language itself, it's about culture, it's about communication, it's about community. I cannot even talk to
30
my son
seconds.
in Chinese. He doesn't understand me that much. So I have to speak to him in English. My English is not as proficient as he's supposed to be like a native speaker, you know. So in addition, offering Chinese language education to NA students enrich our community and promotes lifelong learning. So I just feel like if the whole board or the whole school, the whole
Time is
community
up.
can work together, the kids will benefit from it. Thank you so much for your consideration and your time.
Thank you. That was the last of our pre-registered speakers. Is there anyone who would like to come to the podium and speak on any issue for 2 minutes?
No language. I want to speak swimming pool. Down here.
Okay, 2 minutes.
Okay, I just want to say the whole North Allegheny Street, School Street only have one 6-line swimming pool, 25 yards. And it is despite of the North Allegheny High School have win so many championships, even national champion history. So for the kids, they have a water polo, have a diving, have a swimming, high school swimming, have a younger kids swimming. So the time is very limited. So I'm just wondering when is it possible the time? I heard that pool, the possible the pool could be rebuilt or anytime any reason the building of the pool, the new pool for the kids. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak for 2 minutes?
My name is Susan Van. I live on Lincoln Lane. And Dr. Gibbs, you asked about the donation from the Pittsburgh Foundation. And I just wanted to say, my son was a Latin student and he went to Georgetown and became a lawyer. He died of brain cancer 2 years ago this month. And that comes from the Michael McNaughton Van Memorial Fund. So I just wanted to attach his name to it.
Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for 2 minutes? Seeing none, we will move on to our closing items. Does anyone have any announcements or reminders? Seeing none, we shall adjourn.